I'm Melissa Shanahan, and this is the Law Firm Owner Podcast, episode number 187. Welcome to the Law Firm Owner Podcast, powered by Velocity Work, for owners who want to grow a firm that gives them the life they want. Get crystal clear on where you're going, take planning seriously, and honor your plan like a pro. This is the work that creates velocity. Hey everyone, welcome back to this week. It's part 2 with Ernie Svenson. I'm really looking forward to sharing with you the second half of the conversation. I hope you enjoy. And don't forget to sign up for his newsletter. It's brand new and he's putting a lot of thought into it. I'm really looking forward to reading the content. You can find that URL in the show notes, and you can learn more about Ernie Svenson at ernietheattorney.net. Listening to you talk about the 80-20, which you got like more specific, you were mentioning than just law firm autopilot stood out. It's like focusing on 80-20. I love the idea of constraint, and I think about it a lot. And looking through this lens is a form of constraint, I think. Like looking through the lens of 80-20 and feels really useful to focus on that.
Well, I know you know this, but see, that's why I like this idea of 80-20, because 80-20 lets me pull in something else. So I can pull in the theory of constraints. The theory of constraints says in any system, there's usually one thing that's a major bottleneck that needs to be addressed before anything else can be addressed. Right. And again, it's like the 80-20 rule. Where is that thing? You see, that's the hard part, right? Because it could be a bunch of different things. It could be, I don't get enough clients and I'm not profitable. My constraint of not enough clients is what? Or it could be, I'm not getting enough clients because, like the clients I have aren't served well. I'm not really operating efficiently. Well, you see, it's the operational thing, right? So you start looking at things in different ways, and it's tricky. Like if this was easy and automatic and paint by numbers, everybody would be doing it.
Yeah.
But it's not, because it requires analysis and thoughtfulness and persistence and looking at things in different dimensions. And therefore, turtle steps is the only way to go, because you're not going to be able to do all that stuff really quickly. Right.
When we do strategic planning, after we figure out, you constrain down to a number, and then there's it's like the mother number. And then there's some sub numbers that mean if you hit this, then the mother will be hit. I don't know, I'm being funny with my language, but that's how I think about it.
Yeah.
So revenue is an example, but what do you need to focus on in order for that to happen? Okay. So you get your numbers, but you're constraining down to one focus, and everything feeds to that. But then we get to the part where you have to, again, exercise a constraint and decide what are the key priorities that you're going to do in the next 90 days in order to put yourself on track as best as possible. And people want certainty with that. They want to know that they're picking the right things. But just exactly what you're saying is, and I love your way of explaining that. When you look at, it's hard to know exactly what the right thing to focus on is. Like when you said, I need to get more clients, and then you were going down the path of that example. It's okay, what's the lever to pull? And not what's the lever to pull. What's the lever you're gonna pull to see if it works?
That's the key thing about the constraints. That's the other part of constraints is, one, you want to try to find that place where it's pivotal, right? It has maximum leverage. But the other thing is, we're not going to take action if we have, each thing you add to the action list decreases exponentially the odds that you will either take action or that the action will be effective when you take it initially, right? And also, if you're trying to change too many things, it'll be hard to know which of those things, what's the impact of any of those things, right? If I'm only changing one thing and I see dramatic different results, it's because that one thing I changed, right? You'll know it, right? So there's a whole bunch of different reasons why you should be doing turtle steps and focusing on the one thing. It's another great book. What's the one thing that if I do that, it makes everything else either unnecessary or easier, right? Yeah. Figuring that out is challenging.
It is. But you really have to pin them down to stay with it enough to come out with an answer.
Right. Right.
And you don't know if it's the right answer.
Right. And so this will set up what you and I were talking earlier, which is I want to have you come on my podcast to talk about KPIs, because I think one of the insights I had when I started thinking about all this and what 80/20 looks like is, technology, leverage technology, use systems. Yep. Got it. Delegate to outsource. Okay, fine. But how do I know I'm making progress? Right. Because this is like, it's all invisible. It's, it's not, you have to measure it, but how do you measure it? Well, you have to, measure data and then analyze it over time. And then you will know like, I see there's progress happening, or no, there's no progress, or worse, it's going downhill. Well, if it's, any of those things are happening, what are we going to do to make that better? Well, unless you're measuring it, you can't manage it. Right. And so what are the KPIs that people should, be measuring? And I came up with a list of 7. And we talked about them, but obviously profitability is one. And then you get into profitability. And as you said, it's not simply, obviously measure revenue, measure costs, subtract one from the other. Okay. But what else is going on in there? As you well know, it's not just, okay, we've set that up in their table, we're done.
Yeah.
Right? Like, where are we profitable?
Do you know the concept of leading and lagging indicators?
Yep.
Okay. So this is how I think about a lot. The lagging indicators are like the fun goals. Everybody wants to set those, like the end game. But the leading indicators are where the work is. And so I had a realization this fall. I was trying to do a presentation, and the person I was presenting with was really pushing to talk about leading and lagging indicators. And we did a dry run to my group, and they said they were all very confused as they tried to think about leading indicators inside of their law firms. And is it a leading indicator? Is it a lagging indicator? There's like debate. And I was like, it really doesn't matter. And so I realized that I know it's not exclusively defining a leading indicator, but leading indicators you typically have more control over. It's like the thing that you're going to do because you think it's going to result in the lagging indicator. Right. So that's rocks or like quarterly. It's the things that you're going to do. Now, I think this is what you're getting at. Making that measurable can be hard because it's the effort that you're putting forth in order to see the results that you want to see. Right. And sometimes I always encourage people, it'll be fun to talk about this on your podcast. I do encourage people that there has to be a black and whiteness around it. But sometimes I don't know how they should be tracking other than, are they doing it? Are they showing up, like taking the turtle steps, basically? Because most people don't do it. So it's kind of I guess sometimes you could put a number to it. For instance, if somebody thinks they need to have more referrals, then maybe they have a certain number of lunches every month or every week. Like that's measurable that you're ticking away at. But I think it's very difficult, but a worthy exercise to figure out how you want to measure progress. And I do believe also that your first idea on how to measure progress, you should do that. And then you're probably going to have a realization about what you really need to measure.
Right. Yeah, no, exactly. Well, I will say that I think if I had to pick one KPI in every business that should be measured, because it can be measured easily, and that would be customer satisfaction by using the Net Promoter Score.
Yeah.
The Net Promoter Score is itself an embodiment of the idea of let's simplify this and distill this down to one thing. I know you know the whole story about how the McKinsey consulting guys are like, well, if we ask too many survey questions, nobody takes action. They don't know what's meaningful. And how do you know whether somebody's satisfied? Well, that question is a magic question. Like, how recommendable are we? Like that teases it all out. Like, then that's the question. Like, on a scale of 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend us? 9 and 10 is a promoter, 7 and 8 is neutral, 6 or below is a detractor. So if somebody picks 6 or below, I tell lawyers, you need to set up your system so that when they pick that number in the whatever survey tool you're using, they're now transported to the next question, which is, how can we improve what we do? Because you know that you're not at the top level, right? However, if they pick 8 or 9, they're happy. They're like, they're going to recommend you. Well, then let's pivot to, what did you like about what we did? Can you give us 2 or 3 examples? Oh, by the way, do you mind if we share your comments publicly, because it would help us get other great people like you? No? Okay. Well, then they jump to another question. Okay. Well, then how do you want your name to appear if we publish it? And then they give you the name. Well, now you have a testimonial, right? So you've gone from getting feedback. If it's bad, you know what to do about it. You don't know who gives you the feedback because that question isn't answered. But if the person's a promoter and they say, yes, here's my name, you know who they are, and you collect a testimonial. So there's a couple of different things happening, but all you have to do once you set it up is ask every client at the conclusion of the representation to fill out that survey.
Right? There are variables in terms of stickiness with this, but what do you find, or what do you expect? What percentage of people actually fill it out?
A lot of people fill it out. Because you have to set up how the question is going to be presented and when it's presented, right? But if you construct all that in a little text snippet or email snippet or wherever you need to deploy it from, it's going to be something along the lines, hey, real quick, could you just answer one quick question to give me feedback about how we did? You're telling them it's one question because it really is only one that's required, which is that number, and the rest of them are optional. So they click it. If they don't answer anything else, great. You got your feedback. And then that goes into a composite score that's calculated based on the number of all of other people. And that's your ongoing dynamic NPS score, which could be going up or going down. And then you're also going to potentially get other information that will be useful to you. And people who are unhappy will be that, they want to tell you why they're unhappy. Yeah. And the people who are happy, they kind of want to tell you why they're happy. So the feedback rolls on in. It's easy.
That's cool. In my head, I guess it's not a good assumption. I mean, no assumption is probably a good assumption, but it's just another email that people get. And so they just ignore it, but it just doesn't have to be true. And it does, to your point, the method of delivery and the point at which they receive it matters greatly probably for that.
Yeah. And you can automate because it's anonymous, but you could, using ConvertKit and I'm sure ActiveCampaign, you could do the same thing. You could have a tag get applied if they click the link. And then that tag says, well, they clicked the link. If they don't click the link, you can go, well, they didn't click the link. Okay. Well, then, 2 days later, send an email again, say, hey, by the way, you're busy, but, don't forget. And so you can automate the process of making sure that more people give it to you, but really you can text it to clients. You can email it to them directly. Like people want to give you feedback. They really do, unless they forget or they get busy or it gets lost in their spam folder. Yeah.
It just needs to be easy, convenient for them to do so. Yeah. I have like random questions. I'll just fire off at you. Do you still use Chatterbox?
I do. I like Chatterbox, but I'm not in this current moment. I am not with a Chatterbox person because the Chatterbox person I had a problem with her child and she had to stop working for them. And mostly what she was doing was social media stuff. And she was running my Meet Edgar tool. She learned how to use it. And I realized I really need to learn how to use this. So I said, let me take a break and learn how to use it myself so that I can then direct the next person how to do it better. Yeah. And also I needed to know how to use it better than I did. And I wasn't going to do that if I just said, fine, give me another person. I will go back to them. I love Chatterbox. I think they're amazing. Valerie's in our inner circle area too.
I love
along
her.
With Tiffany. They're all great. Yeah. So they're wonderful. I just, to be perfectly honest, at this particular moment in time, I'm between Chatterbox people.
Okay. Yeah. The other question I had is there anything or anyone you've heard recently that you've really been into? Sounds like 80/20 stuff has taken up some brain space, but.
Well, yeah, the category pirates people I really like just because I feel like of all the people that I've learned marketing things from, like if, I always play this game, like if somebody was going to give me a lobotomy and wipe my brain clean, like before they did that, what would I want to have reinstalled if I could only have one thing installed, for example? So like that game with the book, like if I only had one marketing source to go to learn what I feel like I need to learn, I think that these guys, Nicholas Cole's book on the art of online writing is good for, how do you write online, whether that's blog posts or that's email things? What is the trick? because it's a different game to write in that way than it is, oh, I'm publishing the New York Times bestseller. Or, like it's a whole different game. He's mastered it. He can explain it really well. He teaches it with the Ship 30 for 30, which I'm tempted to take it, but I'm not going to do it now. But he's got that nailed, and he's got the category branding thing nailed in the sense that it's actionable.
Yeah.
And I was only able to make use of it because it was actionable. Because I'm not going to take a course right now because I'm too busy, but I was able to figure things out by just following him on Twitter and then buying the books and, flipping through those. So like, I think those guys are like, I think they're really powerful. They're amazing. And if you follow them on Twitter, for example, the people that will get suggested to you or that they suggest will be high quality as well.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. Is there any skill you're trying to develop right now, or any hobby or skill?
Skill I'm trying to develop. Well, I'm always trying to develop the skill of like understanding human natures and the foibles of, how we misjudge things, misperceive things, overreact to things.
Yeah.
And so, that's like my central hub of that affects so many other things in a positive way. And meditating and journaling every morning, that's a huge.
Yeah. Okay. So what other random questions? Well, I did hear something the other day that made me you're one of the people I think that would really appreciate it. It was an interview with Seth Godin and Tim Ferriss. Have you listened to that yet?
Oh, it's a new one? No, I haven't.
New one.
I'm gotta get on that.
And I was reminded of a quote that was one of my favorites, and I forgot about it until I reheard it on this. And I heard it from Seth Godin the first time, but it is by Elizabeth King, who's a sculptor. And she has a quote that says, "Process saves us from the poverty of our intentions."
Ooh, I love that.
Isn't that good?
Yes. Yes.
I love that so much. I'm like, okay, I need to never let that fall off my radar again. I really, really like that.
Yeah. Because that's what it is. I mean, like, first of all, it's attacking a couple of different things. But as we all know, it's about, if you have the process, the results will take care of themselves.
Yeah.
You should measure the results and all good stuff. But, it's about the process.
Yeah.
And I guess that's like, leading indicator versus lagging. Leading is process. Okay.
Yeah.
And then intentions, we all have good intentions all day long. I have intentions. But this to me is why journaling or having quick capture with drafts has helped me, because if I hear something, I now have a lot of data to know that if I don't write something down, I will forget it. And so the other day, like, this is a really stupid example, but I was watching the Louis Armstrong thing on Apple TV. That's really, really good. I highly recommend it. And he uses this word at one point, and I thought, oh, that's so funny. It's such a made up word, whatever that word is for made up words, malapropism or something. And he said it, and I thought, this is clever. I'll remember that. And I'm like, no, you know yourself. You're not going to remember this word. And then you're going to kick yourself because you didn't remember it, and you either have to go back and watch the whole thing to find it. So he combines the word rudimentary with fundamentals. He said, well, you got to know the rudimentals. And I thought, oh, that is so wonderful. But I had to look it up again, because I know I will forget these things. Our intentions are, oh, yes, I'm going to do that tomorrow. Oh, yes, I'll remember that. And if you start tracking how often you're actually following through on these things, or that you remember to follow through, or any of that stuff, you'll realize that you're not unique among humans, because your brain isn't equipped to remember all this complex stuff. Right? Like, you have to write it down, get it out of your head.
Yes. That's really what I appreciated about you earlier when I said, how are you supposed to keep up with constantly evaluating? I mean, your answer was essentially get it out of your head and onto paper or into drafts in your case. Like, that's the key. If you can do that, you'll get it taken care of in your own fashion. I didn't
come up with this. What is GTD? What does Gary Allen say? Get it out of your head.
Yes.
You must capture it, right? The only difference is, and then maybe he's updated it, but when originally it was like write it down on paper, on note card or whatever.
Yeah.
And I feel like I have tried that, but the problem is if I don't have the note card with me, I go, oh, where's my note card?
Yeah.
Whereas I always have my phone with me, and that synchronizes over to my computer, and I can use drafts in a robust way. So it gives me my default go-to, get it out of my brain, and I get a lot of practice with it. So because I get a lot of practice, I know what to do with it. I know how to use it. I feel comfortable.
Yeah.
I've lowered the
I
friction
can't wait
barrier.
I'm definitely going to try out drafts because mine are in a notes app. It's simple note or something. And it's,
Are you a Mac user?
uh-huh.
Oh, then you need to, I'm going to send you the link to David Sparks's course on
Okay.
drafts. It's free. And he goes, I mean, he's a wizard, he's
Oh,
David
cool.
Copperfield. And I haven't learned all that stuff, but I went through it and just checked off, like, okay, I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to do this. I want to do that.
Okay, that's good enough. Because I mean, mine's I have to scroll through all my notes to figure out, to try to find the thing. And I have way too many in there. There's no way to categorize them. And so this sounds glorious. There is this sense that I have of you. I'm wondering if it's true. I imagine that you live your life very zen. You have lots of space between things. You never have a back to back schedule because on purpose, right?
I've been ruthless about making that happen. At first it was hard.
Yeah.
A lot of mind problems, a lot of not understanding, being afraid. And then I started picking up speed and I was like, wait a minute, this feels good. Boundaries, lots of boundaries and lots of constraints.
Yeah. Okay. And I just imagine you just floating through your weeks.
That's not true. Now, I do take a lot of naps, and my wife would probably nod her head vigorously, maybe in response to what you said, but it doesn't feel like that to me because in my head, I have a lot of ideas that circulate like a whirl.
Yeah.
And so a lot of my journaling was, let me get those out so I can look at them. And then at some point I learned these all don't need to live. If they're super important, they'll come back again. So I've kind of gotten good at figuring out which ones I need to put into drafts or write down. And I've gotten pretty good at not having to write them all down. So yeah, maybe I am more like what you're describing, but it doesn't feel that way to me. It still feels like there's a lot of having to say no to things and figuring out what to prioritize or not. That's how it feels like. But
yeah,
if you observe me, you'd probably say, you're living the life. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. I mean, my image of how you live your life, my mental image is inspiring. I feel like lately I'm bumping up against limits that I allowed to happen.
Well, also, you are in a different season of your life.
I know.
My kids have all grown up, moved away. I'm now a grandfather. That's my dealing with small children. Donna has 2 grandkids, and so they're great. But as you know, with grandkids, it's wonderful for grandparents. So that era, that phase of life that you're in, oh my God, I could not do what I'm doing now if I had children, your age. No.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's good to know. I mean, I picture you back then kind of saying
no. I was in a fog back then. And I told you, here's a book for everybody to read if you're in this stage. Michael Lewis, the famous author, has a book called Home Team, I think. And he dug out his notes from when his kids were little. And then he's like, wait a minute, I don't remember a lot of this stuff. And he wrote a hilarious account of this. And I need to go back and read it again. And I keep it on my list, for when people have passed through a certain stage, because I wouldn't normally give it to you or to my daughter and her husband because they're in the throes of it. They don't even have time. Of course, they don't have time to read the book. It's when you've come out of it and they go, by the way, why don't you read this and see if you don't crack up laughing? And they will, because you've lived through it and you're like, whoa, that is exactly how it was.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's very true. I think of the stage of life I'm in, if there was a, oh gosh, I don't know. There's probably a more succinct way to say this, but a consistent beep, cadence, and it speeds up for busy times in your life. And then it slows down. At the time of my life, it feels like it's do, 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 you're really going, but I feel like it is a notch too fast. I feel like, so maybe you're right. The goal isn't to maybe have flow through the weeks in the same way that you do. You're in a different season of life, but I'm not impressed with my, with my pace right now. I want to back it down a little. And so I need to institute some more boundaries. And
well, the one thing I would say, the old game of what advice would you have for yourself if you were younger? Knowing what I know now, the advice I would give to myself as a parent, I probably did this without knowing that this is an important thing to do. And I think the reason I probably did it was because both of my parents, parented like this. But I think the key to parenting is to let a lot of things go.
Yeah.
Right. Like, there's a lot, like if your kid's going to eat dirt, it's not going to kill him. Let him eat dirt. Right. Like my mother was really good at this. My mother was like, yeah, go ahead, do whatever you want to do. Now, when I was about to do something really stupid, both she and my dad would, intervene or admonish me not to do it. But in general, their approach was, you're going to learn more by making mistakes on your own. And I'm going to sit back and watch you, because then I won't have to be the bad guy. And I always think of this Mark Twain quote, which I say often. He says, the man who carries a cat home by the tail learns a lesson that can be learned in no other way. Now, what he's really saying is, if you get scratched by the cat, you'll never not remember that lesson, right? Yeah. So a lot of the things you need to learn, you're going to need to make the mistake and screw up to go, wow, that was really bad. I don't want to do that again.
Yeah.
Now, of course, I made a lot of stupid mistakes repeatedly, and my parents would point it out. So I'm not saying that I, carried the cat home by the tail only once, but I'm saying as a parent, I think a lot of what I see with parenting is parents obsessing too much and trying to prevent their kid from falling down, scraping their knee, or, like they're going to do that stuff. They just are.
Yeah.
And, they're going to live. It's going to be okay,
Yeah.
So I think collectively parents put a lot of pressure on themselves because they all compete to be the best helicopter parent version of themselves that they can be. And so that's
I mean, it is interesting. It's like I think the business is the pace that I'm not like, something needs to shift, because I would have cut off my pinky 4 years ago to have the scenario that I have right now, to have the problems, quote unquote, that I'm having right now. They're not problems, but it's things to be addressed. And it is, I always know when I'm really craving a Zen life. Like, do I really want a Zen life? No, that's not me. I want a relaxed, fun life. But when I'm craving that end of the spectrum, it's like, I just need to tone it down a bit. I need to kind of set myself up to win at the game of not balance, but something more in that direction. I don't know.
So that, what you just said is like reason number one why I so respect, admire, and cherish how you are as a person and what you teach. Because one of the things I've always, I like learning things, you like learning things, we like learning, we like helping people. But I feel like there's a lot of pressure sometimes when you're the person who's teaching people to present yourself as somebody who knows it all and hide the part where you're figuring it out. And it's like, talk about letting something go. I have let that go. I'm like, look, let's just be clear. I am figuring this out.
Yes.
I am not at the end of the road. I might be a few paces ahead of you. I might be a lot. I don't know where the hell I am.
Yeah.
If you're ahead of me, please go on ahead and tell me what you see. Yeah. If you don't want to follow me, that's cool. But I'm not going to pretend that I have this all figured out.
Right.
And the people that claim or seem to, or don't let you, see that that's what's true, I don't really trust those people as much.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, I just don't. But
I agree.
You.
It is vulnerable. I mean, I do like someone said yesterday on a call, I'm like, why did they think that? Because I don't want people to think that. Someone said on a coaching call, well, I know that this probably isn't a problem for you, but for us mere mortals, there was something about, scheduling your week and honoring the plan that you made. And I was like, what are you talking about? I don't think for a second that I have something perfected, because I don't.
Right.
I do subscribe to certain things, and I work really hard at those things. And maybe on a scale, I'm further along than others, but I will never be done figuring this out. Yeah.
Well, I think it's good for people to hear that, at least in my experience, when I've told people, because they'll go, oh, you're an automation wizard or whatever they think I am. And I'll go, no, I really am not. Like, look at this. And they'll go, oh, you struggle with that too? I'm like, yes. Okay. So that lowers the barrier, I think, in people's brain, because if people are on a pedestal, you go, well, I would never be able to do that.
Yeah.
Hey, dude, I got no secret power here. I have made a lot of mistakes. All I am is somebody who's gotten clear about a bunch of things not to do, and then a few things that seem to work out really well. And that to me is why I love the 80-20 as the idea, because it's like there's a few things that I think people really need to use. Like in technology, there's a few tools, and I'm not going to list the ones you're already using because, obviously you need to use a word processor. Fine. You need to use email. You don't need me to tell you that. What you might need me to tell you is, hey, how are you going with that automated scheduling? Are you using Acuity or Calendly? No. Okay. Well, then drop everything and do that immediately.
Yeah.
And if you are using it, I would say, go look and see whether you can optimize it, because there might be some form questions. Because I know in my own experience, that is not a set it and forget it tool. It has a lot of initial power, but it has a lot of power that you can go back to and optimize. Same for text expander. So, it's being honest with other people about what you're struggling with helps them understand that's what they need to pay attention to and not feel bad if they are struggling.
Yeah. Well, I was not thinking along those lines. It's funny that was an observation. And I appreciate that, because you're right. People that have it all together, quote unquote, it's just a little unrelatable, and it can't be true. It just can't be true.
Right. So there's a comedian said this one time. I thought it was hysterical. He said, and he's talking about the meaning of despair. It's just the meaning of despair. The definition of despair is watching your karate instructor get beat up by an interior decorator. Now, maybe that's not politically correct or something. I don't know, but 15 years ago, I heard it. I laughed, because it's like, if you're supposed to be the expert, how did you get taken down by fill in the blank, right?
Yeah.
But the reality in the world of what we do is there is no karate instructor ninja move.
Yeah.
It's not like 6 moves you make. It's complicated and things change and you get new insights or whatever. It's a dynamic process, right? Let's just be real about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. Oh, thanks, Ernie.
Yeah. Take care.
Hey, you may not know this, but there's a free guide for a process I teach called Monday Map, Friday Wrap. If you go to velocitywork.com, it's all yours. It's about how to plan your time and honor your plans so that week over week, more work that moves the needle is getting done in less time. Go to velocitywork.com to get your free copy. Thank you for listening to the Law Firm Owner Podcast. If you're ready to get clearer on your vision, data, and mindset, then head over to velocitywork.com, where you can plug in to quarterly strategic planning with accountability and coaching in between. This is the work that creates velocity.